Hey, everybody, it's Kim Tucker with Changescape Web. And today we are here to talk about, in episode 95, local SEO. How do you get your local SEO house in order and not be burned? There have been a lot of semi funky things that have been happening lately in the world of SEO. And I think Google's doing some things that, in the overall scheme of things, I think is probably really good because there is a lot of, especially Google business profile spam out there. But they've also been hitting some businesses, and suspending some businesses. So that kind of got me thinking about this topic. When that happens, I mean, it's almost a showstopper for businesses. So, when you're a local business, for many businesses, showing up in those local searches when somebody types in a near me or service or product plus a location, it's absolutely critical. Google Maps, is absolutely a must-have for those businesses. And in order to do that, you've got to have a Google business profile. Um, so, but there are also a lot of other things that have been going on in the world of local SEO that I thought we could take a look at. And so we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about how you do this the right way and not get burned, not sell yourself up, knowingly or unknowingly for failure. In this case, if your Google business profile is suspended, it's almost catastrophic. So so let's go ahead and get started. And we are going to get started with Google business profiles. Um, a lot of businesses, knowingly or unknowingly, set these up incorrectly, and they're really at risk of being suspended. And we've seen Google cracking down on this more and more. Um, Jen, let's start with you. Google considers certain categories of businesses as already spammy or high risk. Can you talk about what some of those categories are? And also talk about this concept that a lot of businesses do, thinking that it's really going to help them out, whether it does or not. And that's called keyword stuffing in your business name.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because upon being assigned this to prepare, I thought, before I did the research, I was like, okay, I bet you I know the categories of businesses that are considered spammy, right? Those ones on the, kind of on the edge, right? I was very surprised. I have a list here of 12. I'll read them out because I was totally surprised that these were considered spammy by Google My Business or Google Business Profile. Excuse me. I still have the old name ingrained in my head here. So here's the list. So garage door. So garage door, set up repair companies, plumbers, locksmith, real estate, insurance, lawyers, pest control, HVAC, tree pruning services, tree planting services, landscapers, and rehab centers. So I was amazed at all those to be considered
Yeah.
spammy. Because obviously a lot of these are services that people would think of are not on the gray area of society whatsoever.
Right.
So unfortunately, that is the list. They do have a catch-all called "and others," which I guess room for expansion on that,
Yeah.
for sure. But we have had clients not in any of these categories have a problem with their Google business profile as well. And it's one of the, when you said earlier, it can be detrimental or, panicking. One of the panicking things about it is there's really not a 1-800 number to call with a customer service agent standing by to solve your problem, right?
Right.
You really have to, email in. You first have to look at the FAQs and visit the forums of what could I have done wrong and try to figure that out. And then you can, send in a note to Google to get some help. And we have done that and we have gotten a response for sure, but it doesn't come quickly at all. So
Right.
that can be very, very frustrating on that. With respect to keyword stuffing, now keyword stuffing in the name of a business is I wish I was just going to say a little sidebar here. I wish we could show some video sometimes because this image that I'll do my best to describe. Just like it's the best visual of what keyword stuffing in a company name really is, because it might sound a little bit funny. So let me do my best to describe it for you. So in these profiles, what Google wants you to do with your business name is just put your business name in there. Are you, ABC roofing company? Are you ABC restaurant? Whatever the name of your company is, that's what they want in that field. They don't want you describing a whole bunch of products and services that you do, right after that, the name of your company, in hopes that you're going to come up in the rankings a lot better. So one of the best illustrations I have here is of ABC Construction LLC, right? Their title, but as well, right after that, they call themselves a general home remodeler in Newark, New Jersey, bathroom remodeling, kitchen remodeling, construction services, additional services, like everything we do put into stuffed right into the field of where your business name is supposed to only go. And Google Business Profile considers that the keyword stuffing into your business name. So don't be doing that. It's not going to help you. It's 100% going to hurt you.
That's that's interesting because I know, gosh, I don't know, it's probably 6 to maybe even 8 years ago. The thinking was a lot of SEOs recommended to actually do that keyword stuffing, not to go crazy with it, but to say business name, primary category, and set that up as your business name. That's 6 to 8 years old. I can't remember how far back it goes, but I remember seeing those, and those that was a very prominent strategy for a lot of people who were trying to get Google My Business pages optimized at that time. It's now a bad idea, bad idea. The other thing too, Jen, that's interesting is the categories that you mentioned are some of the first categories, and now they've started to add to this with the Google Guarantee program, which are the rectangular ads that display across the top when you type in plumber plus a city where these happen to run, or realtor or attorney. Um, and so Google's got this Google Guarantee program where they actually have businesses have to certify, show their certificate of insurance. If they're a locksmith, they have to show their licenses and all those kinds of things, and just to be able to run those ads. So I'm not really surprised to hear that there's a lot of overlap there, because I think Google initially launched they've been called local services ads, Google Guarantee, um, whatever. But they initially launched the first set of niches or industries based on what they consider to be some of those spammy categories. So, Ian, let's move to you and let's talk more about some of the things that people might be doing in terms of the way that they put their address in for their Google Business Profile that may put them at risk of being suspended. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important to first consider why this might be happening with Google. So Google sometimes penalizes locations because of the type of space that they're in. And Google is trying to present the most legitimate. Always remember why Google is doing what it's doing. It's trying to provide the most legitimate, relevant results to the searcher. And if they have found that businesses working out of certain types of locations tend to be scammers or misleading, or maybe not even legitimate businesses, then they sometimes penalize businesses that set them up that way, or suspend them. Remember when I don't know if this is done as much, because most businesses we interact with, they've already been verified on Google Business Profiles. But back in the day when there was more of a ramp up period, Google would actually send out a verification postcard to the location to determine if they were a legitimate business. And that was in order, because there was lots of people creating profiles that were for non-legitimate businesses. So Google was trying to make sure that they were doing due diligence. They want to make sure that quality and relevance quotient is very high. And so that's one of the key ways that they screened out posers. And some other areas where they have determined that they are usually more spam ridden and less relevant is PO boxes. So if you try to submit a PO box, you shouldn't do that. Google doesn't like that. It says it right in there as you're trying to do it. And one of the reasons is that for many businesses, if you don't have a legitimate address, then Google sees you as almost not a legitimate business. There are for sure some mail order businesses that use PO boxes and that kind of stuff. And it's not to say there aren't legitimate businesses, but it is a red flag for Google. If your main address is a UPS store, again, it's a red flag for Google. Even things like virtual offices, which often have real offices in them too, or shared space can be a red flag. And one of the ones that's surprising to a lot of us, especially with kind of flexible businesses that might not have the traditional, for us in the agency world, we might not have a traditional office. Some do, some don't. But co-working spaces are big, right? Where you might have a dedicated office in a co-working space. Even those can be flagged sometimes. But as a business, the very best way for you to determine how Google views these things is to actually look at the Google Business Profiles guidelines. Because if you ever get suspended, that's where Google directs you. And as you're setting up a business, you can refer to those as well. But it's almost like when you install new software and you accept the terms, most people don't do that. So it's just a cautionary thing that, as you were talking about, Ken, it is amazing. Google Business Profile is a really key aspect of SEO, driving organic traffic to a business. It's not the only part, but it's a big part, right? Because Google loves Google. If you can get your Google Business Profile working great, it's going to generate lots of traffic to your website and lots of leads. And if those were to dry up because your account gets suspended, that is bad news for any business.
Why do you think people are, well, maybe we'll come back to this, but, I think the key thing is, a lot of people over the years have set up a business in an address thinking that that's because one of the big things about ranking for your Google Business Profile is always going to be proximity.
Yeah.
Always a super critical factor. So, a lot of people think if I'm on one side of my metro area and I do a lot of business on the other side of my metro area, I'm not going to rank very well on my Google Business Profile. And that's probably very true. So there's been a tremendous amount of spam that people have done to try to game the system. And so that's why Google has these terms of service that you need to pay attention to. I asked Ian in his defense to specifically not talk about a type of business, which I want Paul to talk about, which is a service area business. So Ian really talked about those places of business that, where they set up camp and they have the ability to run their operations, at least conceptually, right? So Paul, what's a service area business, and how, what kind of mistakes do they make, or maybe even some online stores or online only businesses make that put their Google Business Profile at risk?
Well, first thing, there's service area business and there's service area business. If you have a service area business because Google will tell you if you're a service area business, you cannot put your address in your business profile. But that's not completely true. If you are working out of your home and you don't have a storefront that people can come to, then absolutely do not put your address in your business profile. But let's say maybe you're an HVAC company and you do have a storefront where people can come into, but generally they don't because you go to them. In that case, you can put your address in your profile because you have a real storefront. You're not working out of your house. So a lot of times with Google, it's these subtle things that they don't really talk about. And it's like Ian touched on the virtual office. That's completely different than, let's say you have a building where you have 5 different professionals, 5 different dentists. There is a way to set up your business profile, and Google does look at that differently. So a lot of times it's these subtleties that Google doesn't make clear. And so if it is a virtual office, yes, you can get suspended for that. And if you are a service area business working out of your house and you put your address in there, yes, you will probably get suspended for that. But a lot of and keep in mind, Google's algorithm, despite what Google thinks, is not perfect. And they do, just being in the wrong industry can put you at high risk of being suspended. A little off topic, we have an automotive client that we're doing some AdWords for. And I noticed the other day that one of their ads was eligible but limited. And the reason was credit repair policy. So I sent Google an email saying, why is an auto repair service business being limited because of credit repair policy? They don't do credit repair. I haven't heard back yet, but
Right. Yeah.
maybe they haven't figured it out. But
So-
I don't know. Is that kind of what you were looking for? Or
Yeah. I mean, a service area business is a business where people do not go to that place of business and meet, the company at the company's place of business. Instead, the company goes to where the customer is. And if you do that and you do not have somebody on staff available to meet in your office and you publish your address, you're at risk.
yeah, that is key. Is do you have someone staffed it? And one thing I didn't mention is if you're an online only business, you don't even qualify to have a Google business profile. Now that's different than if you're a local business and you do have a location, but you sell all over the country online. That's different. It goes back to these subtleties. Then you can have a business profile. But yeah, if you're basically mail order and you have no location, you just sell products all over the country, don't even try to set it up, because if you manage to get it set up, it will quickly be suspended. Chances are you won't even be able to get it set up in the first place.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why Google doesn't like PO boxes, co-working spaces, or virtual offices is because, again, the criteria in the Google terms of policy is that if you're going to publish your address, you need to be able to have the ability to have somebody meet somebody if they come to you. And if you can't do that and Google finds out about it, you will be suspended. And, you may be able to get away with it for a while. There are competitors and there are other marketing companies that are aggressively trying to find and weed out some of these spammy listings, because it can be an SEO factor to help them with their client get an SEO win. So it's not just Google, it can be your competitors. It can be other marketing companies that aren't working with you, but working for your competitors, who are kind of calling these things out and submitting that information to Google, and then Google will investigate it. So, Jen, we've talked, in the past about ranking a local business, but it is pretty hard. And why is the Google local pack or the Google Maps pack so important?
Why is it okay? So first of all, what it is again, we need like a whiteboard, or we need some visual here for next time. We'll just improve this podcast as we go. But anyways, when you search for any business, what Ken is referring to is the first bit that comes up with the maps, and there's the 3-pack, as we call it. So the first 3 companies in that, I guess, in that category that respond to those search terms that would come up. What's so important about it from the user point of view is in the person searching for that type of information, is that it comes up, it's above the fold, it's right there, it's really easy for them to see, okay, who are the top 3 businesses, who's closest to me, proximity wise, and then some key information, the phone number, the reviews, the hours of service. So it just kind of gives you all the very, very important information right there without having to click through and find out any further information. So they just make it very, very easy to go, here's your top 3, and away you go. So all that is available without any of the user having to click through. And if you think about that on the desktop, or if you think about that on your mobile phone, that can be really very, very handy, right? And right away, you can probably discern between the 3, what's your first choice, and then, click to call or whatever it is, make your next choice without having to search further. With this, it's hard to rank as a local business, because it just, like anything worthwhile, I know this is going to sound a little like airy fairy, but it takes time and patience and consistency in order to do that. You have to have your website up. You have to be on different citations. You have to have your name, address, phone number correct. You have to be publishing content. You have to make sure that you're linking out to appropriate other websites. There's just a lot of things, a lot of care and feeding, much like, dealing with a garden, that you've got to be doing, and you've got to be paying attention to in your local profile and in your website, in order to have local search really work for you. So that would be the toughest reason why. It just takes some time and consistency to get that done.
Yep. All right, Ian. It's time for you to talk about reviews again. I think we always wind up letting you talk about reviews. I know it's a topic you do love, and I think you're quite good at it, at getting review strategy in place for your clients. Talk about the importance of reviews again, and maybe not as much as we have in some of the past episodes, but also kind of closely tied to that is this idea of directories, which some people say aren't very important anymore. Some people say they are still. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So let me start with, let's do reviews, because Ian's passionate about reviews. And why is Ian passionate about reviews? Because Google is passionate about reviews, but even more so, prospective clients and customers are passionate about reviews. I'm not going to go into lots of detail. The stats prove it. Everybody treats reviews. Sure, there's skeptics out there, but the vast majority, we're talking like, 90-something% of people view reviews as a quality way to determine if a business is good or if a business is bad. So it really is a powerhouse, especially for local rankings. So Google uses these to look for the best and most relevant businesses to showcase, right? It's one of the ranking factors. Google was very clear about this when they redid, and they're always redoing their algorithm. But a few years ago, there was a big local business algorithm change where reviews became a very prominent part of that. Reviews prove to you as that a business delivers on their promises. And again, Google's trying to send you to the best, most relevant options. And so a business that has great reviews, I'll go into some of the other details in a second, but they play a big part, and Google sees it as a relevant piece of the puzzle to send you to the best place. Google cares about customer experience, right? Like even the algorithmic changes about what a person's experience on a website is now that Google changed with Google Core Web Vitals, which doesn't touch reviews, but it just shows that they care about user experience, because that, again, all Google's trying to do is send the best, most relevant results to you, because that's what will make you come back for more search results, which will help feed the ad engine of paid ads, and so on and so on. So overall, your overall ranking is really important. So are you a 4.9, a 4.8, a 3, a 2, right? Star business. The overall ranking is really important. The number of reviews is important as well. You'll often see there are exceptions, but you'll more often see a company, a dentist with 350 reviews outrank a company that a dentist that has 50, right? Because there's value in that. Recency, right? When was the last time you got a review? Was it 4 years ago or was it yesterday? That's important as well. And it should be noted that Google looks at reviews on other websites too. So this kind of leads into the directory question that you raised, Ken. Google, if you just type in pretty much any business, but like if you typed in dentist near me or a specific dentist in your area, and the knowledge panel comes up, the knowledge panel is the thing that will say, if I typed in Bradford Family Dentistry, which is actually my dentist, it'll actually, I don't know if I should give that out, but anyway, it'll show you a knowledge panel. There are many Bradfords though, so I wish it was the one in Florida. There's a knowledge panel. The knowledge panel will say it's actually the information directly pulled from Google Business Profiles. It'll say this is the business name, this is the number of reviews, this is the ranking, here's the latest photos they have, here's their hours of being open. And it'll also often show you, and this changes fairly often, I've noticed, it might pull in Facebook recommendations, the number of those and the rating. It might pull in Yelp. It might, like, it pulls this information because Google's got its tentacles everywhere, right? So it's drawing information. Again, it's presenting information it thinks is valuable to people. But now specifically related, before we move on, did I miss anything related to reviews that you were hoping I'd cover, Ken?
Responding to reviews.
Responding, I can't believe I forgot. It was actually in my bullet points. Yes, a business that responds to reviews, again, is a ranking factor. Google wants to see that you're actively involved. So whether it's a negative review, a positive review, you as a business should be interacting and responding. Good call there, Ken. Directories, you're right. They're in the SEO nerd world that we all live in as marketing agencies that focus on SEO. There's definitely been some contention whether online directories, which I'll explain a bit in a second, have value still in our ecosystem, our SEO ecosystem, or whether they don't. My take is actually that they still do. There's still enough data to show that, if you do this work, it helps your results. It helps legitimize your business in Google's eyes. Because again, Google's got its tentacles. I shouldn't make it like an octopus. I need its roots. It's got its roots out. But some examples. So directory listings are things like Apple Maps, the Better Business Bureau, Yelp, Foursquare, Yahoo, Angie, Manta, Nextdoor, Houzz, Guild Quality, Yellow Pages. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the really important thing as a business is to get yourself on as many of those, but be consistent with your NAP, your name, address, and phone number. Any inconsistencies raises red flags for Google, but consistency just reinforces what Google knows about you. So I think that's where the value is. You're giving. It's almost like in my mind anyways, of how Google works. And, it's a guess, but I think it's a double check for Google. Like it keeps its roots out in order to go, hey, here's the information that Changescape Web has out on the internet about who they are. And then it knows, because it's in all of these places, it knows that, hey, in this marketing association, Changescape Web has put in the same information, therefore it confirms the information we have. If there's different information, red flags, right? So I think it's a really easy way, not so much for the business owner, but for an SEO agency supporting a business owner to create legitimacy very quickly in the eyes of Google. So I see that, and it's pretty low-hanging fruit. So why not do it, right?
Yeah. Well, you look at the 3 things that Google says that you need to do for your Google business profile. It's relevancy, proximity, and prominence. So relevancy is, all of the data that Google can find out about your business online. Not only your Google business profile, but your website and all these directories, and all of the content that you have out there. And so that's the relevance thing, and that's something that you have a lot of control over, a lot more control over. You don't have control over proximity. You are where you are, right? So, and then the other thing that you talked about is prominence, and that's really the idea of reviews, the number of reviews, the review velocity, how many new reviews you're getting, all those kinds of things that you talked about. So yeah, great points. I still think directories are pretty darn important, because they send signals to Google to just say, hey, yeah, Google's looking for trustworthy information, and a directory can provide that, or can provide contradictory trustworthy information. So,
and Ken, one of the things I didn't mention was that on some of these sites, right, the reviews on them are not nearly as important as on Google, right? Because Google is where people are searching. So you want to make sure you've got that part down really well for generating reviews. But there are, like, some of these directories or association sites or Guild Quality or Yelp, like, because Google's looking at those and because they might come up in Google rankings, it's important to have like a good set of reviews on there as well. So just kind of closing the door on that, because I didn't mention that before.
Well, the other thing too is, Google is not the only search engine. So, if you're doing if you're doing Apple Maps as opposed to Google Maps, or you're using Bing as your search engine, they're not going to pull necessarily from Google reviews. They pull from other sources and display those on their search results, or they can. And so, yeah, so you need to have a well-rounded strategy, and directories and reviews, feed the search engines, whether it's Google or other platforms and or apps for that matter. Paul, can you talk a little bit more about, and I don't want you to get too deep here, but can you talk more about some of the technical aspects of getting some of these local SEO signals?
You trying to tell me something when you said don't go too deep in the weeds there?
Well,
Maybe a common
keep
theme,
it. Yeah, you don't have to go into some hardcore stuff. Just talk about, if nothing else, arm our viewers and listeners with the information that they know they need to be asking the people that they are hiring, whether in-house or externally.
All right. Well, I'll start with structured data, and I won't get all techie. It's structured data. Basically, it helps search engines know what your website is about, and like hours, address, menu, because phone number, because these aren't real people from Google looking at your website. It's a bot. Okay, it's Google sends their internet bots out there, and they crawl your website and try to make sense of it. And structured data helps it understand what that's about. And one thing that's been discussed lately is whether or not GPS coordinates help. And I think within the address part of structured data, it does. But there's been, in the past, people would use GPS coordinates on images and upload those to their website and their Google business profile. And there's some debate on whether or not that is effective. I think it's not, because I can take any picture, throw it in Photoshop, and put in whatever geo coordinates I want and upload it. So I think Google tends to dismiss the GPS data in images, but if it's in the structured data as it relates to your address, I think they do use it. Click-through rates from search results, you don't have a lot of control over that. Not direct control. Indirectly, you can control that from your quality of your content, your headlines, your title tags, because that helps Google determine whether or not your content is relevant to a search result. So indirectly, you have some control over that. Localized content is really important because if you want to rank locally, Google wants to know if you're a part of that community, if you're involved. So they can't know that directly, but they can look at your website and say, okay, they understand this area. And having a local page as opposed to a service page, it's two different things. You can kind of put them together, but having pages about the areas where you can mention your services and things you do, but where you really talk about the area that you serve and what's great about this area and things to do and upcoming events, that lets Google know that you're involved in that area and you know what's going on. And on page location, keyword optimization, meta descriptions, I talked about that a little bit. Inbound links, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but inbound links are important. One thing I'll mention is that having a bunch of links from one website doesn't help as much, because if you have one link from an authority site, Google will give that a fair amount of weight. Having 20 more, Google doesn't give those as much weight because it's from the same website. So that's pretty important. Anchor text, I don't want to get too deep into this either, but anchor text, which is if you're linking internally, and internal links are something else that's important, but anchor texts help Google understand what that link is going to.
So Paul, just a real quick example, the words that you decide to make clickable, that's anchor text when it goes to,
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay.
And one thing that you don't have any control over, but is important from a local ranking perspective, and this has become even more important with what has been called the vicinity update, is proximity to the searcher. Google has given that a lot more weight, and you can't control that. So even if you're a service area business and your address doesn't show, when you set up your business profile, you have to put in an address so Google knows where you are. So let's say you're a plumber and someone searches for plumber near me, and Ken, you alluded to this, if they're on the other side of the city, well, depending on how big the city is, obviously, Los
Right.
Angeles is going to be different than Collinsville, Illinois. But the chances of you ranking in that search is very slim, because there's a lot of plumbers between you and that person 25 miles away. So even though the plumber is going to go to them, when the searcher starts putting in a geo coordinate, whether it's near me or city, especially if they're on a mobile device, Google is going to use the GPS data from their mobile device, and they're going to show the closest search results. And you don't have any control over that, but it's important to understand, because I'm sure all of you see this. We see it where we have clients that they want to rank 25 miles away, and they want to know why they're not showing in that map pack. It's because you're 25 miles away, and we can't tell Google what to show in the map pack. All we can do is follow their guidelines. And if Google decides that other businesses closer to the searcher are more relevant, there's nothing you can do about that.
One word I didn't hear you say, I think it is the word schema or schema markup. You talked about
That's structured data.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that those are pretty synonymous. So you might hear people talk about it either one of those two ways. And the other thing
schema is the language used to implement structured data.
Okay. The other thing that you talked about is, in regard to the locations, if you're a service area business, you can define the locations that you work in, and you can define that service area. And Google gives you a lot of different options on how you can do that. You can do it by neighborhoods. You can do it by suburbs or cities. Several political jurisdictions actually, like school districts and things like that. So, but if you tell your Google business profile, hey, here's the area I serve, and then you don't have any of that content on your website talking about the locations, that's a huge missed opportunity, big time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, Jen, let's talk about local links. So, we talk a lot about, getting high authority links from high authority websites, that have a strong domain authority. And, some of those are, going to be like newspaper sites and, and media sites and things like that. But talk about, the whole idea of local links is really different. What are local links and why are they important?
Well, the local links would be websites, publications, events that are applicable to your local area. So just like you said, typical publications with high domain authority, like the New York Times, these national newspapers, that kind of thing, national publications, they have a lot of domain authority. But if you are a company in a small town, or if you're even in a big city with a relatively small service area, linking to those sites aren't really going to benefit you from a local point of view. So the local links would be, so instead of trying to get, a link to the New York Times, you should be trying to get a link to your local newspaper, or even better, your local community newspaper. Get links there. Think about having links to local bloggers, to local event pages. One of the things throughout North America, there's, meetups, but those meetups are concentrated locally. There's local events there that are local meetups that have topic areas that would make sense to be connected with. Your local chamber of commerce, local big business directories, local charities that you're either involved with or donate to. Those are the type of local links, or that is what is meant by local links. So local businesses, local events, things that are happening in your neighborhood, in your region, in your service area. So even if, say, let's pick on the New York Times, if their website has, I think it's the 99 domain authority or 98 or something like that out of 100. Even if your local paper has, maybe a domain authority of 25, right? I mean, there's no comparison there. But as far as Google is concerned, you having a link from your local newspaper online makes a lot more sense than to, a huge national newspaper. So that's what local links are. So they are very important, and within your service area, those are the kind of things you want to go for. They're very relevant to your local business. And if you're thinking right now, well, how on earth do I find them? What you can do is go search on websites of other local businesses. They don't necessarily have to be competitors, but you can get a lot of ideas of who they are linking to, who they are involved with locally. And that might give you a good idea of, how to start up your local link strategy, and even how to get more involved in your local business or local community area.
Yeah. I think it comes back to context and relevance. I mean, local links help with those things. Sure, those strong national links. I mean, maybe you have an article that is picked up, and maybe you build a link from like this old house. As a local plumber or electrician or something like that. Sure, that's always going to be important, and it also is important because it has the relevance. But you still need to get locality and local-based kinds of things. Ian, what other ideas do you have to help build local links?
Yeah, I mean, there's Jen covered it really well. There's some of the shop local websites where communities are trying to gather local businesses to try to support them. That's a great spot. Jen talked about other businesses, right? One of the things you can do is reciprocal links between businesses that believe in each other. Obviously, like if you're involved in a BNI or something where you're referring business to other businesses because they've earned your trust, that's a great thing that you can do as a gift to them, and they can do it as a gift back. It doesn't mean they have super high domain authority. They might not, but that's okay. It's just about, how can we help each other. One of the things you mentioned, Jen, was charities. I've seen this work extremely well for some of my local clients, where whether they're sponsoring a specific charity event or they're a longtime provider, and so they actually get highlighted as a platinum sponsor. Usually that gives charities have usually excellent domain authority, and so those backlinks have been super, super powerful for some of those local dentists or other businesses. Even if you can write an article for a local publication, and oftentimes they'll highlight, feature the business at the bottom of it, who you are, right? You can get a link back on that, which will be, of course, in print, but it will be digital as well. Yeah, those are just some of the other ones I would say. And of course, directories, like we talked about directories. If there's local directories, you might as well get on them, right? They may not have garnered great domain authority as of yet, but that's okay. I should mention too, this is more like an insider's technique, but you guys might use this. I certainly do when we're looking at how, we're always doing competitive analysis of local SEO for our clients. And one of the things that we look at is if we see somebody starting to, like if we're the dominant player and they're starting to encroach on us, or if they started out as the dominant player and we want to learn how to displace them, we do what's called like a backlink report on their website, so that we can actually see like who with a high domain authority is linking to that competitor's website, because sometimes that can be like a real shortcut for the business to go, oh, they support this charity, or oh, they're involved in this local directory. We can do that as well. Why not? So that's a really often low-hanging fruit that a business can jump on. But again, we have access to tools that a lot of businesses don't, but that's a really quick way that someone can help you start to get some good backlinks.
Yeah. So Paul, Ian kind of talked about one of the ways that you can find local link opportunities. You have any other thoughts?
Sorry about that, Paul.
Oh, I'll come up with something here. But yeah, there's a lot of, obviously start with the directories and citations. If you're a member of your local chamber or multiple chambers, getting links from them. If you can get a local newspaper to do an article, maybe you sponsor a charity event and it's in the local newspaper, does an article on that. If you can get a link from them back to your website, that's pretty powerful. Local bloggers that blog about different events in the city, different, maybe the local food scene, or if you're a restaurant, or different local events that maybe you're a part of, if they can link back to you. Because again, we're talking about local SEO as opposed to your organic search results outside of that, which is two different things. And a lot of times I think we lose sight of that. If you're one thing, let's say you have a business in a historic part of the city, getting a link from the local tourism board back to your website because you're in that historic district, that can help. Like I said, local charities, if you sponsor a charity event, getting a link from that charity back to your website. Any local organization that you're involved in, you could even have a local partners page. And this takes a little bit of work, but it can be done through things like BNI or the chamber. But having a local partners page, let's say you're in the service area or home services industry, and you're a painter. Well, people need plumbers too. A painter isn't a plumber and a plumber isn't a painter, but you could have a local partners page where you link between those websites. and that helps build your local authority. So there are opportunities, and it does take work, but there are opportunities for that.
Yeah, one thing that I know, we know this guy. His name's Phil Singleton. He was one of the fathers of the marketing guides concept, actually, with Ray Perry when they started writing some of the earlier books. When you look at local sites that carry the strongest domain authorities, you've got some very localized directories, but don't forget about local .edu domains or .gov domains, because those typically are seen as very high trustworthy websites. And so if you can find a way to get a link from a local school district, a community college, a local university, a local city government, any of those, and now that it takes some work and you have to be creative. And I think we all have some ideas on how to do that. But when you can get those can be really good as well. So don't forget about those opportunities. And there's some really good ways that you can go about that. All right. Well, we've talked about a lot of different things. Most of it has been really kind of focused ultimately around, this idea of local SEO, and, obviously the Google Business Profile is critical for that. You guys have any other thoughts that you want to share, on maybe something we really didn't go into depth on, or you want to elaborate on this topic?
Well, I just want to, as probably the least technical of the group, I just want to say that don't let any of the technical bits scare you with this, and just really think about it as just the same as you go out and you're doing the networking and your work. You're saying that word of mouth and referrals are the way I get business. Well, having your SEO all set up properly and paying attention to it frequently can really help with those referrals as well. So don't be scared of it. Just take it step by step and just keep an eye on it every week at the outset, every month, and just make sure that you're really paying attention to it for your own business.
Yeah, there was something came to mind actually when Paul and Ken were wrapping up the link opportunities thing. We actually didn't really talk about the elements within Google Business Profile posts and events and that kind of stuff that can actually be, again, Google loves Google. So I would be remiss to leave that out. So there's tools within Google Business Profiles that allow you to post things that would link back to your website that, of course, are valuable as well. Yeah. And I would just say, I think we all the guides here have felt this at one time or another when a hurt or burned person has come to them and said, I tried this. The SEO people were horrible. They didn't do what they said they would do. Or I tried to do this myself and I got suspended, whatever it is. Don't give up on this. As a fellow business owner and a marketing guide, I would just say, this is a really, really important area for your business. Don't ignore it. Don't give up on it. And if you need help, seek help because it's out there.
Yeah, I would say that right now there's a lot of volatility in local SEO because of Google's vicinity update. And hopefully that will smooth out and level out over time. But right now they've caused a lot of disruptions in the local search market. And the fact that they've put a lot more weight on proximity, that's going to affect a lot of service area businesses. Even though you can define your service area and have local content, you can't control how far away a searcher is from you. And Google is putting more weight on that for whatever reason they decided to do that. It is going to have an effect. So just know and understand that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. We've seen a lot of volatility where, people who ranked extremely well across, entire metro areas, with the vicinity update that recently happened, there definitely were some wrinkles where there was definitely a reordering of how people were ranking. it looks like it's starting to settle itself out a little bit and kind of normalize, and things are getting back, and so again, I think another key thing too is just do best practices. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge and expertise out there. If you're trying to play a shortcut game, you're going to get burned ultimately, sooner rather than later. You may be able to win. You may be able to win at it for a number of years, but if you're trying to set up fake Google My Business pages or fake Google profiles, it's ultimately going to come back, and it's going to, you're going to get those shut down eventually. Or there's, you can't game the system. That's the whole reason there continued to be algorithmic updates, and also the reason why Google will not tell anybody else what the algorithm actually is and does. We all have to use our own best knowledge and expertise to figure that out. So it's a complicated world, but you don't expect that all of this stuff is going to come super cheap. Some of it is fairly inexpensive and pretty easy to do and win at. But, always be suspicious if somebody's coming in at a really low price too, because you're going to get what you pay for.
And Google is putting more weight on the geo modifiers, because I've noticed, and a lot of times you have to do this in incognito tab to get rid of your own search history. But if I type in like a head term without a geo modifier, like if I put in residential painter, a lot of times I'll get completely different search results than if I put in residential painter St. Louis. So they are putting more weight on that geo modifier from a local search result.
Yeah, it triggers a different algorithm, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And that's something we didn't talk about that we should mention real quick, is the local search algorithm is different than what we traditionally refer to as organic search algorithm. It is two completely different algorithms, and the geo modifier triggers that local search algorithm.
And that geo modifier can be kicked off if you're doing a search from your phone.
Yes.
Yep.
Because it's using your GPS coordinates on your phone.
Yep.
Or even your home, right? Because your IP address, who your internet is through, will show up as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the internet service providers report their IP address, which may not be where you're at. It may be several miles away, and so it can influence your search results.
Yeah, they buy those in blocks, and generally they use those blocks within certain geographic areas, but depending on how big that block is, that geographic area could cover 20 miles.
But even if, for certain businesses, like chiropractors, dentists, places like that, people rarely go beyond a 5 to 7 mile radius.
Right.
That is in kilometers for you Canadians there, but
Thanks, A.
What's that?
I said thanks, A.
We know miles as well.
Yeah, we drive.
But for businesses like that, even a 2 or 3 mile difference in the IP address reporting can throw off the search results for you.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, this is a great topic. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas about how to not get burned. Some things, maybe why you need to go back and take a look at and see if you're at risk. Certainly go look, and we'll see if we can't put in the show notes for this, maybe the Google guidelines, on how to set things up properly. But if you like this podcast, please share it with your community, and please consider writing a review for us. It just helps us get the word out to even more people. So with that, we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.